Do not rush into the next thing just yet. Stay here for a few more moments and let yourself become still, because some of the greatest changes in a life begin without noise or spectacle. They begin with a quiet decision to stop, to listen, and to notice what is happening beneath all the noise. You were already reaching toward whatever came next when my voice reached you instead, and that is not an accident, just as you are not an accident. I am the one who made you, and I am speaking to you now. I am not speaking from some distant place where you can barely hear me. I am close enough to speak over the noise you have been carrying for a long time. There is something I want to tell you plainly, and I want you to hear it before another hour passes. What you have been asking me for is no longer something waiting somewhere far ahead of you. It has been released, and it is near. I know what that sounds like to a heart that has been waiting for a long time. You have heard promises before, and some came from people who sincerely meant well, but could not give you what they said they would. Others came from your own hope, something you held on to because you needed enough strength to make it through one more month, one more week, one more day. But this is neither of those things. This is my word, and my word does not have to wait for your circumstances to agree with it before it begins to work. Think about the way a shepherd moves. He does not wait until the flock is already in danger before he begins to act. He knows the path before the sheep need it, and he knows where the water is clear and still, long before they become thirsty. He sees the opening in the wall before the flock reaches it, and he stands there to protect them. That is how I have gone ahead of you, because the road you will walk this month is already known to me, and the turn that has been troubling you is a place I have already stood. You have prayed in rooms where nobody else heard a sound. You have prayed late at night with the lights off, trying to put words around something that came out broken, incomplete and difficult to explain, and you have prayed in the middle of ordinary hours while your hands were busy and your face gave nothing away. I heard the words you spoke, but I also heard what was underneath them, including the part you could not bring yourself to say aloud. Nothing you brought to me disappeared in the sending, and none of those quiet prayers were lost to me. There is something else I understand about you. You had become careful around good news, because disappointment taught you to brace yourself before you let yourself believe. So when something good comes near, you look at it twice, then look again, as though checking it one more time might protect you from losing it. Part of you still stands back with your arms folded, waiting to see whether this will become another disappointment. I am not angry with that caution, because I know the years that built it, but your caution will not decide what happens here. Today, I am the one holding you still, and I will not let you walk past what I have placed in front of you. Some of the things you called closed doors were my hand turning you in another direction, and there were rooms you wanted to enter that I would not open. So you took those refusals as a judgment on your worth. They were not a judgment on your worth, they were direction. When I keep a door closed, it is not punishment, but one of the ways I guide a life without breaking it. There are people you will meet in the season ahead who walked through some of those doors, and one day you will understand what I was sparing you from. You have asked me more than once why the thing you wanted did not come sooner, and I will answer you honestly. A roof cannot be placed where the walls are not yet strong enough to carry it, because weight needs something beneath it, or what was meant to be a blessing becomes a burden. What I am bringing you carries weight. It carries responsibility, provision, and people who will depend upon it. You can carry that weight now in a way you could not carry it before. You became stronger without even noticing the strength being formed in you, because much of that work happened quietly while you were simply trying to make it through your days. Do not expect what is coming to arrive with trumpets, because my work rarely announces itself that way. It may come as a word from someone who had no idea what you have been carrying, a name returning to you at exactly the right hour, or a door opening before you have even finished deciding whether you should knock. It may even come as a quietness inside your chest where there used to be constant churning. Do not dismiss these things because they appear ordinary. This is often what my work looks like. Your part is smaller than you have feared and steadier than you have believed, because you do not have to chase what I am already carrying toward you. You do not have to gather evidence that you deserve it or build an argument for why it should belong to you. Stay awake, stay honest with me, and move when I tell you to move and rest when I tell you to rest. That is enough for you to carry right now. The striving you have lived with for years, the pushing, calculating, planning, and lying awake trying to solve problems that were never yours to carry alone, you may begin to set that down now. There is something else I want you to understand, and it matters just as much as what I am doing around you. Something inside you is being repaired at the same time, because I am not only dealing with your circumstances, I am touching the part of you that has learned to place yourself last. I am dealing with the voice that tells you to want less, so disappointment will hurt less when what you want does not come, and with the way you have sometimes made your prayers smaller because you are afraid of asking too much. I am undoing that quietly from the inside. You will notice it first in the way you speak to yourself when no one else is listening. I did not bring you this far to leave you standing at the doorway, and I did not begin what I will not finish. You are still here, still breathing, still willing to listen after everything that tried to make you stop listening, and that alone tells you something has been holding you. It was me. It is me, and what I began in you is not approaching its ending. It is approaching its opening. So let your shoulders fall, and let the breath move all the way into your lungs. There is nothing you have to repair in the next 5 minutes, and nothing in your life is moving beyond my knowledge of it. The thing you have been afraid of has already passed beneath my watch, and the thing you have been hoping for has already gone out from my hand. Stay here with me, because I have more to say, and none of it is meant to crush you. Listen to this before we continue, because I am not speaking to a crowd right now. I am speaking to one person in one room, carrying one particular weight in their heart. If you are wondering whether these words could truly be meant for you, that very wondering tells me something about where you are. The people who assume a message like this must belong to someone else are often the ones I came looking for first. Say amen out loud right now if you believe I am speaking to you. And let me tell you about a young man named Joseph, because some of what happened in his years will help you understand some of what has happened in yours. Joseph was 17 when I gave him a dream of standing tall. Then, within a season, he found himself at the bottom of a dry pit, listening while his own brothers ate, and decided what they would do with him. They sold him to strangers for the price of a slave, and he entered a foreign country owned by another man with no language he knew, no family beside him, and no way home. He served faithfully in that house, and it cost him dearly, until he was accused of something he had not done by someone with greater standing than he had. There was no one there to speak for him, so Joseph went into a prison cell. While he was there, he helped the servant of the king, and asked only that he be remembered. But the man walked out free and forgot him. 2 more years passed in the darkness before anyone spoke Joseph's name in the palace. I want you to understand what I am not saying, because his years in that cell were not pleasant, fair, or something he needed to pretend was good. He was not required to be grateful for the pit, and he wept in that place. The injustice was real, the waiting was real, and the forgetting was real. But this is what I want you to see. The forgetting did not last, the lie did not stand, and the pit did not have the final word. When the appointed day came, Joseph walked out of that cell and stood before the throne of the land, before the sun went down. Years of waiting were changed in the space of an afternoon. Do you understand what that means for you? I do not need a long runway to change a life. I only need the hour to arrive. Everything that needs to be true for your turn is already true, except the timing, and the timing belongs to me, and it is closer than you think. Do not judge my pace by how slowly the last decade seemed to move, because I do not measure time the way you have learned to measure it. The weather can change so gradually that you hardly notice it, and then, almost all at once, the whole sky is different. There was another man named Daniel who knew what it was to pray with his heart laid completely open and hear nothing in return. For 3 full weeks he waited. He ate simply, remained on his knees, and lived through days when heaven seemed closed above him, as though his prayers had nowhere to go. When the answer finally came, he learned something that changed the way he understood every silence afterward. His words had been heard from the very first day. The answer had already begun its journey at the moment he asked, even though he could not see what was happening between his prayer and its arrival. What Daniel called delay was a journey taking place beyond his sight, through resistance he did not know was there. So listen carefully to this, because you have been carrying these 2 things as though they meant the same thing, silence and absence. My quiet has never meant that I left you. When you heard nothing, I was not standing somewhere deciding whether you were worth helping. I was already moving. Some of what stood between you and the answer was never a reflection of weakness in you or reluctance in me. There are things taking place beyond what your eyes can see, and I have been dealing with things on your behalf that you may never fully understand. You will never know every danger I turned back or every resistance I removed before it ever reached you. But I know exactly what the waiting cost you. I know the nights when sleep would not come and the mornings when certainty felt far away. I know how the waiting made you smaller in rooms where you should have spoken, and how you learned to answer. "How are you doing?" with words that sounded fine even when they were far from the truth. There were mornings when simply getting out of bed was all the obedience you could give me, and I counted even that. You did not fail those years, you survived them. Then for that season, survival was the assignment. Now let me tell you what I was doing during the time you called empty. I was moving people, even while you were tired and unaware. And there is someone you have not met who will matter deeply to you. Someone I have been preparing for longer than you realize, so they will recognize you when the time comes. There were rooms where your name was spoken while you were somewhere else entirely, perhaps wondering whether anyone even remembered you. You could not hear those conversations, but that did not mean they were not happening. I was also quietly removing things from your road. There was a partnership that would have hollowed you out, and there was a door that looked beautiful from where you stood, but opened onto a long fall. You grieved some of those endings because you could only see what you lost, not what you were being spared. One day, you will understand some of those closed doors well enough to thank me for them by name. And do not miss this part. While I was arranging what surrounded you, I was also rebuilding what was within you, because the person you were 10 years ago could not have carried what I am placing in your hands now. That is not because you were unworthy then. Your shoulders simply had not yet been strengthened for that weight. You have been made steadier through years you often thought were accomplishing nothing. You can hear a difficult truth now without coming apart, receive praise without letting it consume you, keep something entrusted to you, wait through a delay, and forgive a debt that was never repaid. Those things may look ordinary to someone watching from the outside, but they are not small things to me. They are the kinds of things I look for before I entrust a person with abundance. So stop reading your past as though it were a judgment against you, because your history is not a ruling on your worth or a prediction of where you are going. It is simply the ground where you were standing while I was working, and I have not handled any part of your life carelessly. Even in the seasons when it felt as though everything was being torn apart, I was not careless with you. Look at yourself now, and notice what has changed. Things that would have shattered your peace 3 years ago can pass through you now without taking everything with them. You catch yourself praying before you panic instead of waiting until afterward, and you can recognize when a room is not good for you and leave without needing everyone to understand why. You have begun wanting less noise and more truth. That is more than simply growing older. That is me working from the inside outward, and it is some of the clearest evidence that what I promised you is drawing near. Look also at the people who remained close when your season stretched longer than anyone expected. Some left when the waiting became too long, and their leaving revealed something about why they had been there. But a few stayed. Someone still checks on you, and someone still carries your name into their own prayers without telling you. I placed those people near you, so guard them, thank them, and let them witness what I am about to do. The pit was never Joseph's address, and the prison was never his name. You have been moving through a season, not living there forever, and the place where you are standing now is the final stretch of it. Lift your eyes from the ground in front of your feet and look farther ahead, because the road is about to widen. If you trust me with what you cannot yet see, let me hear that trust from you now. Amen. There is a kind of trust that remains quietly inside the heart, and there is another kind that reaches the hands and changes what a person does. Both are real, but one of them eventually moves you toward the door standing in front of you. Throughout the generations, when I was about to change someone's circumstances, I often asked them to do something that made little sense to the people watching. I did not ask as I needed what they possessed. I asked because releasing what they were holding could loosen fear's grip on them. My child, I want you to hear me today. A portion of what you have. Something that carries real weight for you upon the altar of this work. Like gold placed upon the scales of a calling, let it become a seed sown into deep water, an offering placed upon the stone, released without allowing fear to hold it back. This is an expression of your trust in my hand to provide, and of your heart releasing its grip on lack. What you release in faith does not simply disappear from your life. It moves ahead of you toward the harvest I am preparing. Now let me show you what obedience can look like when the evidence has not appeared yet. I once told a man named Noah to build something enormous on dry ground beneath a sky that gave him no visible reason to believe. There was no cloud gathering above him, no warning in the air, only my word and years of work. He kept hammering while his neighbors watched, laughed, and made their judgments. And every morning he woke to the same clear sky that seemed to confirm everything they were saying. Still, he continued to build. That is faith, not the comfort of knowing in advance that you will be proven right, but the willingness to keep working before the evidence arrives. I did something similar with Abraham. I told him his family would become greater in number than the stars, and then I allowed him and Sarah to grow old while they waited. They waited beyond what seemed reasonable, beyond what they had imagined their lives would look like. And when the promise was spoken again, Sarah laughed, but hers was not the laughter of easy joy. It was the sound of a woman who had learned to live with the possibility of going without. I was not offended by her laughter. I kept my word anyway, and I brought it at an hour so late that no one could mistake the outcome for good fortune or careful human planning. When it came, there would be no confusion about whose hand had brought it to pass. This is one reason my timing can seem strange to you. If the answer came too early, you might credit your own wisdom, and others might do the same. But when it arrives at my hour, and in my way, you will know where it came from. That knowledge will become something no one can easily talk you out of. I also want you to understand something about the way I provide. When I fed an entire nation in the wilderness, I did not give them enough for an entire year at once. I gave them what they needed for that day, and asked them to return again tomorrow. Some of them struggled with that. They tried to store more than they had been given, and what they kept spoiled by nightfall. It was not cruelty, it was closeness. I wanted them coming to my door each day, not remembering me once, and then living an entire season as though they needed nothing from me. So if your provision has been arriving in this same way day by day, enough for today, do not interpret that as my stinginess. See my nearness in it. You have been carrying a worry you have never said aloud, and you have been trying to solve it by yourself in your mind at 2 in the morning, turning the same numbers and names over and over until you arrive nowhere. Bring it to me. Give me the real thing, not the polished version you show everyone else, but the one with the numbers, the names, and the fears still attached to it. I am not shocked by any of it. I have never looked at a person's honest trouble and thought less of them. Look at the way I care for the world around you. The birds do not plant their own food. They do not fill their storehouses, and they do not calculate every provision before it arrives. And they are fed. Look at the wild flowers covering a hillside. They are clothed with a beauty that surpasses what kings wear, and they never spent a day laboring to create it, and most of them are seen by no human eyes at all. Yet I see every one of them. If I care that carefully for something whose beauty lasts only for a season, think about how carefully I am holding the life I created to last forever. I know that much of your worry is not really about you. So much of it is about the people you love, the people whose names you carry into prayer, even when you never tell them you are doing it. You have stayed awake thinking about them, wondering whether you have done enough, whether you gave them what they needed, and whether some part of their struggle was your fault. Bring them to me by name. I love them too. I have loved them longer than you have, and I am working in places within their lives that you have not been given permission to see. Your prayers for them have not simply fallen away into the ground. They are already moving ahead of them along the road. So hear me carefully here, because this is one of the places where you have been hardest on yourself. You are not behind. There is no schedule you somehow missed while everyone else moved ahead. The comparison you keep making between where you are and where you thought you would be by now is not a measurement I use. I have never once looked at your life beside someone else's and decided that you were late. I do not run one race with many people competing against each other. I walk one road with each person, and you have walked yours with more courage than you have been willing to give yourself credit for. Let me settle something else in you, because your worth has been unsettled for years. You did not earn your place with me by performing well, and you cannot lose it by performing poorly. My love for you is not a wage that rises and falls with your performance. On the days when you are strong, I do not love you more than I love you right now, and on the days when you are at your weakest, I do not step away until you have made yourself presentable. That is not the kind of father I am. So put down the ledger you have been keeping against yourself, the one where every failure is written in permanent ink, while every good thing is written lightly enough to be erased. I do not keep that kind of record over you. What I have spoken over your name in my house is not a list of everything you have done wrong. It is my word concerning who you are and what you are about to walk into. Something is changing. You will sense it before you have enough evidence to prove it. And there may be a stretch of days when you are the only person who recognizes what is happening. Hold steady there. Do not run from person to person asking them to confirm what I have already told you. Stay with me a little longer, because now I want to show you something about the way I form a person before I raise what they carry. When I chose a king for my people, I sent my prophet to a house where there were 8 sons. 7 were brought before him, and every one of them was taller, older, and more obvious than the boy I had chosen, while the one I wanted was still out in the field and had not even been called into the room. They had to send for him. When he finally came, he smelled of sheep. And I told my prophet, "That is the one." Oil was poured over David's head in front of his family, and then do you know what happened next? He went straight back to the sheep. There was no throne waiting for him, no parade, and no change in the work he had to do the next morning. He carried the knowledge of what I had said about him, while almost nothing in his daily life gave him any visible reason to believe it. For years he fed animals, carried water, slept beneath the open sky, and remained anointed yet unrecognized. If he had needed other people to approve what I had spoken before he could believe it himself, he would have abandoned the path before his life had even begun to unfold. You have known something similar in your own life. You have carried a sense for years that there was something you were made to do, and you have sometimes felt embarrassed to say it because your ordinary circumstances seemed to argue against it. But your ordinary days were never the evidence. My word was the evidence. And something else was happening in those fields while David thought he was simply doing his work. A lion came for the flock, and he fought it and survived. Later a bear came, and he faced that too. There was no audience watching him, no crowd applauding, and no one sitting around a table later telling the story of what he had done. When David eventually stood before the giant who had frozen an entire army in fear, his courage did not come from recklessness. It came from having already stood alone against something dangerous and discovering, in private, what I could do when he was completely outmatched. So do not tell me that the years nobody saw were meaningless. You have had your own lions. You told the truth when telling a lie would have been easier, and no one ever knew what it cost you. You kept your word to someone who had no power to force you to keep it, and you held your temper when you had every reason to release it. You slowly paid what you owed when no one was watching to see whether you would make things right, and you sat beside someone during the worst week of their life without telling anyone afterward that you had been there. Those were not insignificant mornings. Those were lions, and you faced them, and I was the one who saw you. David's road did not suddenly become easy after the giant fell. In many ways it became harder. A king hunted him. He slept in caves with a few loyal men, while a price was placed on his head. And then one night he was given an opportunity to end the life of the man who was hunting him. He could have taken what appeared to be within his reach, but he refused. That decision, made in the darkness where there was no audience to admire him, mattered deeply to me. It was part of why I could trust him with a nation. I was not merely building a warrior during those years. I was forming a man who would refuse to seize by force what I had promised to give him. Hear me in that, because there is a difference between something that lasts and something that burns itself out in a single season. Anyone can reach out and take when fear is driving them, but very few people can wait for what has been promised and receive it without having to force it into their own hands. I have taught you to wait. It has been some of the hardest schooling of your life, and you did not enjoy one day of it, but you can be trusted now in ways you could not have been trusted before. I have never chosen the obvious person simply because they appeared ready. I called Moses when he was 80 years old, carrying a shepherd's coat, a stammer, and a crime from his past that had driven him away from the only country he knew. He gave me a list of reasons he was the wrong person for the task, and every reason he gave me was accurate. I did not argue with him about any of it. I simply told him, "I will be with you." That was the whole of his qualification, and it was enough. I called Gideon a mighty warrior while he was still hiding, quietly doing his work because he was afraid, and I called Jeremiah while he was still protesting that he was too young to be heard. I placed Esther inside a house she had never asked to enter, and in a position she could never have arranged for herself. And then an hour came when she was the only person standing where she needed to stand. None of them felt ready. Readiness has never been the requirement. Willingness is, and you have been placed as well. Where you live, the work your hands are doing, the people who cross your path, and the strange turns that brought you into this particular life, you have called some of those things mistakes. They were placement. There is an hour coming, perhaps sooner than you think, when you may be the only person standing in the right place, with the right heart and the right history, to do something that matters deeply to someone else. You will not need a title for it. You will simply be there, and you will know. Let me tell you what I look for in a person before I entrust them with more. It is not talent. I give talent freely, and talent by itself proves very little. I look for a heart that can still hear me when I speak, a heart that is not hardened, someone who can receive correction without falling apart, and receive praise without becoming inflated by it. I look for someone who remembers where they came from and refuses to despise the years they spent in low places. You have that. It cost you some of your pride to receive it, and it is among the most valuable things you carry. So when the change comes, and it will remain, the person you are now, keep the prayers you prayed in the beginning, especially the honest ones that came before you knew how to make them sound beautiful. And keep close the friends who knew you before everything began to change. Do not fill your life so completely that there is no quiet left for my voice, because that quiet was part of what brought you here. I am about to increase what you carry, and I have no desire to let you lose yourself beneath its weight. You are not the same person who first began asking me for help. Over the years I have been rebuilding that person quietly, layer by layer, in ways that have become part of you and cannot simply be undone. The one standing here now has been formed through what you have lived, and you are ready. There was a night on a lake when my son was sleeping in the back of a fishing boat while a storm came down with the kind of force that frightens even men who have spent their lives on the water. The waves were filling the boat faster than experienced fishermen could empty it, and these were men who knew the lake well enough to recognize when a situation had gone beyond their control. The one they had left everything to follow was asleep on a cushion in the stern while they fought to keep themselves alive. Finally, they woke him with a question that sounded more like an accusation than a prayer. "Do you not care that we are going under?" Notice this carefully. Their question was not rejected. It is one of the most human things a person can do in a hard season, to look at what is happening around them and wonder whether heaven has become indifferent. He stood, spoke to the wind, and the whole lake became still, as though the water had suddenly forgotten how to rage. Then he turned toward them and gently asked why they had been so afraid. The deepest answer to their fear was not the calm that came afterward. It was the fact that he had been in the boat the entire time. He had been sleeping, yes, and he had been silent, yes, but he was still there. The storm never changed that, and the storm never had the authority to decide whether he cared. You have spent seasons rowing with everything you had, fighting against what seemed determined to pull you under, and asking me whether I had stopped caring about you. Hear me clearly. I was never absent from your boat. I have not looked away from your life for a single moment since it began. Let me tell you about two men named Paul and Silas. They had been beaten with rods that very day because they had done what was right. Their backs were wounded, and their feet were locked in wooden restraints. They were placed in the inner part of the prison, the place with no window and very little mercy. And yet around midnight, while nothing about their circumstances had improved, they began to sing. They did not sing quietly enough to keep their suffering private. They sang loudly enough that the other prisoners could hear them in the darkness. Then the ground shook, the foundation moved, the doors opened, and the chains fell away. Before the night was finished, the man who had guarded them was on his knees, asking how he could belong to me. Understand what happened here. Their praise came before the visible change, and they gave me the one thing they still possessed, their voices. I met that offering with the strength of my hand, and that is what I am asking of you during these stretched-out days before your circumstances change. Give me something before the proof arrives. Give me a word of thanks in the car, in the kitchen, or in the middle of the night when sleep refuses to come. Not because I need flattery from you, but because there is something that happens inside a person who thanks me while the walls are still standing. That kind of gratitude comes from a heart that has stopped trying to negotiate with fear. Now I want to speak about something harder, because I will not give you a comforting answer simply to make you feel better. There was a man of mine named Paul who carried a trouble in his body that he deeply wanted removed, and 3 different times he asked me to take it away. I did not remove it. Instead, I told him that my grace was sufficient for him, and that my strength is revealed most clearly in the place where a person knows their own weakness. He eventually stopped asking me to take that particular thing away, and he became one of the strongest servants of his generation. So if there is something you have begged me to remove and it remains with you, listen carefully to what I am saying. My silence concerning that one thing is not indifference, and it is not punishment. There are things I lift from a person, and there are things I carry alongside them so they can discover how much of me is present even there. You have already learned something in that difficult place that you might never have discovered in comfort. You have learned that you can be weak and still be held. There are people who will one day need to hear that truth from you, and they may not believe it from someone who has never had to live it. And I want you to understand what my peace truly is, because you have sometimes been looking for the wrong thing. You have been waiting for peace to mean that trouble disappears. But my peace is something stationed at the entrance of your heart, like a guard upon a wall. It can remain at its post even when your circumstances have not moved an inch. That is why you can sometimes walk away from a difficult conversation and remain steady. It is why there was a night last week when you slept, even though by everything you could see, you had enough reasons to remain awake. That steadiness was not simply your own strength. I was standing watch. Do not measure my faithfulness by the way you feel on any particular morning. Your feelings change with the weather, with exhaustion, with disappointment, and even with how much sleep you had the night before. But my character does not change with any of those things. What I told you when your faith felt strong remains true on the morning when you can barely find the strength to pray. I have not changed my mind about you during any of your lowest weeks. There is also a covering over your life that you cannot see and cannot measure. Not every danger that came toward you was allowed to reach you. Some things came right to the edge of your life and were turned away, and you simply continued with your day without ever knowing what had passed so close. I do not usually show a person all the disasters they were spared. I would rather teach you to trust me than have you spend your life counting every danger I prevented. But I am telling you this now so you understand that my covering has been real, and it has been active for years. Some of what I have been doing has looked like loss from where you were standing. Certain people are no longer as close as they once were. Some doors you expected to open became quiet, and certain things you once enjoyed no longer hold your attention in the same way. Do not mistake all of that for decline. I am clearing ground. You cannot build what I am building while the remains of an old season are still scattered across the site. When I remove something, I remove it because it will not survive where you are going, and I would rather you lose it now than discover later that it could not carry you into what comes next. Your strength has not disappeared, it has simply moved. There was a time when your strength rested in your ability to manage everything, anticipate everything, and keep every part of your life from falling apart through your own effort. Now that strength rests in me, and that is a far safer place for it because I do not become exhausted, I do not run out, and I never have to guess what comes next. Declare your amen now if you know I have been with you all along. You have asked me for a map, and I keep placing a lamp in your hand instead. I know that has frustrated you, because a map would show you the whole road, every turn, every bridge, and where the road eventually ends. A lamp does something much smaller. It gives you enough light to see the ground directly beneath your next few steps, and little beyond that. But the lamp also means you have to keep walking beside the one who carries it, and that is exactly what I want from you, not your independence, but your company. So this is how you will walk with me. You will receive enough light for the next step, and when you take that step, there will be enough light for the one after it. You have called that unfair more than once, because you wanted to know the whole road before you were willing to move. But this is how you and I have walked together through this entire long road. You have not needed to see everything at once, because I have been beside you in every portion you could see, and every portion you could not. Stay with me, take the light I give you, and let the next step be enough for now. And that is why you know me now, in a way that people whose lives have been easier may never have had to know me. Let me teach you how to recognize my voice among the others, because you will need that discernment in the season ahead. My voice brings a settling to you, and even when I tell you something difficult, there is still something solid underneath it, something your spirit can rest upon. Fear does the opposite. Fear speaks fast and insists that you decide right now, before you have prayed, before you have slept, before you have had time to become still. Anything that pushes you into panic and demands an immediate decision is rarely from me. I have never needed to rush you into obedience, and I will never lead you towards something that contradicts what I have already spoken to you. Test what you hear against that, and you will not be easily led astray. Now think about a widow named Ruth. She had lost nearly everything that once made her feel secure, and she was living in a country that was not her own, bending over at the edges of someone else's harvest to gather whatever grain had been left behind. There was nothing remarkable about that particular day. She was simply standing in the heat, doing the work that needed to be done. And yet the field where she happened to be working belonged to the one man who could restore her family's future. Ruth did not arrange that meeting, plan the field, or engineer the circumstances that brought her there. She simply kept working, and I did the placing. Hold on to that, because you have wondered whether your ordinary days matter, or that the small, faithful things you keep doing are adding up to a life with any real weight. They are. The work your hands keep doing, the care you give to people who may never thank you, and the standard you continue to hold when taking shortcuts would be easier. All of it matters. You are gathering at the edge of a field, and you have no idea whose field it is. You may think you are only doing what needs to be done today, while I see what that faithfulness is connected to. There was also a fisherman named Peter, who worked through an entire night and caught nothing. His nets were empty, his arms were aching, and the hours he had spent on the water seemed to have produced nothing worth bringing home. Then he was told to go back out and lower those nets once more into deep water, at the wrong time of day, by someone who did not have the same fishing experience he did. Everything Peter knew from experience told him that it was pointless. Still, he went, and when the nets came up, there were so many fish that they nearly tore, and the weight of the catch almost pulled 2 boats beneath the water. I may ask you for something similar, a final attempt at something you already tried and failed. At one more conversation you have already decided is finished. One more day of showing up in a place that has produced nothing for you. Do not decide the outcome simply because you know the history. The attempt that comes after what you considered the last reasonable attempt may be the one I am asking of you. And your faith does not have to feel enormous for me to use it, my child, in today. Not because everything around you, his circumstances have shifted. Not he meant what he said. A small thing placed in a great hand carries more weight than a great thing held in a small one. So if all you have today is a thin thread of belief that has somehow survived everything these hard years have brought against it, bring that to me. I am not asking you for an impressive performance. I am asking you to extend your hand. Keep planting. A harvest is not late simply because you cannot yet see it above the surface of the soil. Every kind word you have spoken, every truth you told when honesty cost you something, and every quiet act of mercy that nobody recorded has gone into the ground. The one who continues without giving up will reap in the proper season, and I have never broken that arrangement. Now there is something practical I want you to do, and I want you to actually do it. When my people crossed the river I had opened before them, I told them to take 12 stones from the riverbed and stack them on the other side, not because I needed the stones for my memory, but because I knew they would need them for theirs. Later, when the water rose again, and their courage became small, they could look at those stones and say, "That is where God did it." You have stones too. Go back and count them. Remember the provision that came from a direction you never expected, the illness that somehow brought a person into your life during the very week you needed them, the night you were certain you would not make it through, and yet you are here now speaking with me. Remember the door that closed and protected you, and say these things out loud. Write them down somewhere you will find them again. Your history with me is one of the strongest answers to the fear you are carrying right now, and you have forgotten to use that history against the fear. You have more evidence of my faithfulness behind you than your present anxiety wants you to remember. Do not let one frightening moment erase everything you have already lived through with me. There was a prophet named Habakkuk who looked at his country and could not understand what I was doing. He spoke honestly to me about what he saw, and I did not silence him for asking hard questions. By the end, he had settled something deep within himself. Even if the fields produced nothing, even if the vines carried no fruit, and even if the animals disappeared from the stalls, he would still rejoice in me. Notice when he made that decision. He made it before the harvest, while the fields were still empty. He settled the question of my goodness before the circumstances gave him a reason to feel secure, and once he had settled that within himself, No season could take away his footing. I am asking you to make that decision now. Decide today, before the confirmation arrives, that I am good and that I am for you. There is a difference between a heart that trusts me only when the news is good, and a heart that has already settled its trust before the news comes. The second kind of trust has roots, and that is what I have been forming in you through every stretched-out year. Your roots have gone deep in the darkness, and that is why the wind will not easily take you. What has been growing beneath the surface is stronger than you realized, and now the part you have been waiting to see is beginning to rise above the ground. And now I will tell you what I brought you here to hear, and I will say it plainly. It has arrived. Not almost, not someday, not one day when everything finally lines up. It has arrived, and it is standing at the edge of your ordinary life, waiting for you to recognize it. The season you have been asking me to bring to an end has ended. What comes next will be different from what you have been living, and you will not have to force every part of it into place. It may not arrive with the drama you imagined. Remember that, because you have pictured this moment with so much intensity that you may expect the sky to announce it, while my best work is often much quieter than that. It may be a Tuesday, an ordinary conversation, a name suddenly returning to your mind, a yes where you have become accustomed to hearing no, or an amount arriving from a direction you never considered. You may not even recognize it as the answer at first. You may look back a week later and realize that the beginning was already there, quietly unfolding inside an ordinary moment. So when it comes, do not make yourself smaller. That is the one thing I want to warn you about. You have carried lack for so long that you learn how to shrink yourself around it, and smallness can become a difficult habit to break, precisely when the moment comes to open your hands. When the door opens, walk through it. Do not stand there questioning yourself over and over about whether you deserve what is on the other side. You do not have to feel worthy before receiving what I have decided to give. No one I have ever blessed felt perfectly qualified when the moment came. They simply said yes before fear had enough time to convince them otherwise. There will be a voice telling you that this will not last, that you should protect yourself because you have been disappointed before. Recognize that voice and refuse to let it speak for your future. That voice was shaped by your disappointments, and it is not prophecy. What I give does not disappear simply because your circumstances become unsteady, and it does not depend upon whether other people approve of you. When the moment comes, remember what I have told you. Open your hands and do not allow the fear you learned in yesterday's season to decide how you receive what is in front of you. And no one who resents your name can take back what I have established for you. What I establish, I preserve. There will also be moments when you feel tempted to explain yourself to people who never walked through the years that shaped you. But you do not need to spend your strength doing that. Some people will genuinely be happy for you, and those of the people who belong close to you, while others will need to reduce what happened to luck, timing, opportunity, or something you had that they did not. No explanation you offer will satisfy someone who has already decided what your story means. Let it go. Your business is with me. Now listen to what I have promised concerning your strength, because those who wait for me do not simply receive a slightly improved version of their own strength. Their strength is exchanged for mine, not merely stretched, but exchanged, so that they rise like a great bird carried upward by the wind, instead of exhausting themselves trying to rise by their own effort. They run and do not become worn out. They walk and do not collapse. And this promise reaches the people who have looked at themselves and thought, I have nothing left. You have had mornings when you honestly believe that about yourself, and perhaps you have thought it more times in the last few years than you ever told anyone. Watch what happens to your strength now, because you are going to discover that you can carry more than you thought possible without being broken beneath it. And remember this as each new morning comes. Every morning is new. My mercy does not arrive carrying yesterday's account book. Whatever you got wrong last week is not sitting somewhere waiting to be placed back into your hands. And whatever you spent simply trying to make it through the last month has not left tomorrow empty. When tomorrow comes, tomorrow's supply will be there. It will come when you need it, not hours or days before you have been given the grace to carry it. This is why I am asking you not to borrow trouble from a day that has not arrived. You cannot spend grace that has not yet been given to you. So stay with the portion I have placed in your hands today. And something else is going to happen. Something that matters even more than what you receive. What I place into your hands will become provision for other people as well. There will be people who are fed because there is something on your table, people who become steadier because you learned how to remain steady, and people who hear about me through your life and believe what you say because they can see that you are not pretending. Someone has been asking for help this year, and the answer to that prayer will come through you. The people you love are part of this too, the ones whose names you whisper when the house is quiet, and the ones you continue carrying before me, even when you do not know what else to do for them. I do not bless a person as though their life exists in isolation. What I release into your life will travel farther than you can trace. It will touch people whose stories you may never fully know, and whose lives you may not live long enough to see completely restored. Your faithfulness will reach beyond your own lifetime. There are things your obedience will set in motion that you will never have the opportunity to measure for yourself. So let me remind you who is doing this. It is not your strategy, though I have seen the effort you have made. It is not your discipline, though I have honored the ways you kept showing up. It is me. Throughout all of history, I have never begun a work in a person and then abandoned it halfway through. What I begin, I finish. I am not saying that simply to make you feel encouraged for a moment. I am telling you something about my character, and because that is who I am, your outcome does not depend upon your ability to hold everything together tightly enough. You do not have to carry the entire future by the strength of your own grip. So hear my word over your life as these hours turn. Peace over your home, rest over your sleep, enough upon your table, my hand upon your going out and your coming in, wisdom in your mouth when the right words matter, and favor in rooms you have not entered yet, protection over the people you love, whether they are near or far, clarity where confusion has lingered, steadiness where you have felt yourself shaking, joy that does not require everything around you to remain unchanged before it can live inside you. You are not forgotten, and you have never been overlooked. You are not late. You are not behind. You are not receiving less because someone else's life appears to have moved faster than yours. You are mine, called by name and held with purpose. And I have been closer to you through all these years than the walls of the room where you have been sitting. Stay close to me now, not because I am about to leave you, but because you were made for this closeness, and it will sustain you through the life ahead. Speak to me in the morning before the day becomes loud and crowded. Come back to me at night and tell me the truth about what happened in your day, even the parts you are tempted to hide. Keep the promises you make. Be generous toward people who have nothing to offer you in return. Keep your peace when someone provokes you, and continue living by the lessons you learned during the hard years. Then what I add to your life will rest well upon your shoulders, because you will know how to carry it without losing what the waiting taught you. The waiting is over. The road opens wider from here. Walk forward with your head lifted, because the one who made the whole earth has been walking beside you through all of it, and there is nothing ahead of you that I have not already gone before. Seal these words with your own voice now. Say amen and receive everything I have spoken over you. If you would like to support this work, you can do so through the QR code or the support link in the description. God bless you.